going to stick around.
All right, Roger.
Okay, we on?
Yep.
All right, welcome to the January 14th Gull Lake Trail Steering Committee. We will call the meeting to order. And I know that we have, there's 4 of us in person, myself, Roger Landers, Bill Meyer, Paula West, and Tessa Capelli is in person. Guess I'm not sure who else is out there, but we'll find out soon. Is that right, Amber?
Yes, we have Mary and Mark Streed zooming in, and also Brian Pike.
And Brian Pike? Any other members
That is it.
on board yet?
Nope, just those 3.
So that the ones are missing at this point is Ross Krautkramer and Mark Ronai. So we just have 2 missing at this point from the Trails Committee. Okay, so we'll go through the agenda. First thing we want to take care of is the introduction of our new Parks and Rec Director, Amber Peterson. Is that correct? Yeah, Amber's been with us since fall.
Yes, I've been on the Parks Commission for a few years. I think I started in 2019 and took over as the Park and Rec Director here in October. So familiar with the project a little bit and really diving in deep here, getting caught up to speed.
Okay. I believe that on this committee, you met Mark or Bill for the first time, and you know everybody else that's on the committee. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Also, I would like to point out that from the city council, Ross Krautkramer will be joining this committee. And I don't know if he's going to be Zooming tonight or actually show up in person, but Ross then is he going to be the only city council person?
Yes, at this time.
Okay, very good. And also we have, I think Jenny Max is with us tonight in the audience. So we'll move on to approve the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to approve the June 2020 minutes. Been a while. This would have been back when Matt was still here. I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So to move.
Second?
Second.
Second by Tessa. Okay, hearing none. Is there any other comments on those minutes? If not, we'll move to the open forum. I believe we have 2 people that are here to make a presentation in our open forum slot. Mary and Mark Steed. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mark can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, absolutely. You bet. So,
Can we see him?
yeah,
Maybe.
pardon? Sorry, work in progress? Okay, as long as we can hear you, Mark and Mary, that's all we need. Now, open forum, meaning you've got 5 minutes, and your issue is rather complex, and we're really going to need the city engineer involvement on this. So I'm hoping that in 5 minutes, you just kind of give us a general concept of what your issue or concern is, and then at a later date, we will discuss this issue, and I'm sure that Amber will make sure that you have a chance to attend that meeting. Is that okay?
Sure, that sounds fine.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
We have the map. Do they have the same map?
Yes, they are aware of that map.
Okay, we all got the map, so go ahead.
okay, that sounds good. Thank you very much. Mary and I have, we just had our 23rd summer living in the West Pines neighborhood, which is right where the Gull Lake Trail will enter Lower Roy Lake Road. And I think you guys all probably know where West Pines neighborhood is. And we raised our 3 kids there, and we're avid bicyclists ourselves, golfers, walkers, runners, all that sort of stuff. And so we're very familiar with the cluster of moving parts that happens at that area on Lower Roy Lake Road, where it enters the West Pines neighborhood. Golf carts travel from the lakes number 8 to lakes number 9. Bikers, walkers, runners, golf carts, all that is happening at that area. And when we first became aware of the Gull Lake Trail this summer, we were looking at maps in the city of Nisswa, and we generally thought the proposal looked good and safe. But then this fall, we saw that the proposed route in that vicinity had changed, and that raised concerns for us, primarily because of safety. Safety is our concern. Safety is our priority, and we see so many bicyclists, mostly groups, family groups, a lot of children biking, for example, from the Grandview Lodge area, entering Lower Roy Lake Road. And my understanding is, and I think the map or the drawing that Amber has shared with you, the concern is that with a cluster of moving pieces, you've got so many bicyclists coming in from Grandview Lodge that would have to cross Lower Roy Lake Road once at that area where the golf carts and automobiles, trucks, whatnot, and then they would go on the one side of Lower Roy Lake Road for 300-400 yards, and then they would have to cross again at another high density intersection. So they would be essentially crossing Lower Roy Lake Road twice in 400 yards. And that stretch of Lower Roy Lake Road also has a significant bend to it and a downhill or uphill, depending on which way you're going. All those things, I think there's safer alternatives that should be considered, and maybe they have been. So I don't want to sound like Mr. Know-it-all, but I believe, for example, that the traffic on the Gull Lake Trail could cross right at the entrance to Lower Roy Lake Road where there is a stop sign, and then they could cross and then stay on the same side of Lower Roy Lake Road all the way up to probably where the Copper Creek area is. And those Grandview Lodge bicyclists would never have to cross Lower Roy Lake Road once at all, as they could just bear to the right as they're biking from Grandview Lodge. So that's our concern. And I wanted you to be considering it. And I thank you for the time that you've given us here today. And we hope to work with you. And Amber, by the way, has been very helpful in giving of her time and updating us, since we haven't been part of the meeting so far. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark and Mary. We appreciate that you bringing up this concern. This will be an issue that we will be discussing with the Grandview folks and also with our city engineer, and we will keep you updated on when which meeting that will be brought up. So again, thanks a lot, and you're welcome to attend the rest of the meeting if you want to see what else we got going on.
Oh,
If
we
not,
will. We're very interested at this point in what's going to happen. So we'll stay involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are you going to stay with us tonight or not?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
we
because
will.
one of the things we might want to take a look at is when we'll be holding monthly meetings. Do we want to keep them at this date or change them? So that you might be interested in that.
I do have a question
Okay.
for Mark. Looking at this map, so, Mark, my name is Paula West. I live at the far end of Lower Roy Lake Road, close to Copper Creek and in the Cove development.
Yep.
So I'm very
Yep.
familiar with all the bicycle traffic that we had on Lower Roy Lake Road this year. And I share some of your concerns about the Grandview traffic, especially down by the golf course, because I'm an avid golfer as well. But I just wanted to understand, you were suggesting that they cross once down by the, where the trail comes in off of 77 and then stay on the north side of Lower Roy Lake Road all the way to Copper Creek? Was that was that what you were suggesting?
Be on the
This
east
is
side.
Mary. I'll step in on that. It's staying on the west side of Lower Roy Lake Road, sort of the Copper Creek side or the Cove side, but where a lot of the traffic comes through is you go, Grandview Lodge goes through the golf course area, and that's where most of the bicycles go.
Yes.
And then it goes, so they don't, the bicyclers and those little kids, they don't go on 77. They go briefly on 77 across from the Grandview Lodge entrance to the Pines entrance.
Mhm.
And then at the Pines, they also have the townhomes, and then there are those other developments that are going on there. If you stayed on the west side of the Roy Lake Road, kind of the Copper Creek side, the whole time, those folks would never have to cross Roy Lake Road.
Yeah, that's what I wanted clarification of, because
Right.
the current route of the trail is along once you make the bend on Lower Roy Lake Road, you're going down from the golf course, you make the bend, and now you're going east on Lower Roy Lake Road. The trail is right now routed to be on the south side of Lower Roy Lake Road because there is some state land and there's, pardon?
A lot of city land.
A lot of city land that we would not have to have tried to obtain easements from people on the north side there. So I was just trying to, I'm very familiar with where you're talking about the congestion is. It is a problem there. And unfortunately, that road, that service road that comes out of the golf course there is narrow, and there's always a lot of car traffic there, but that's also it doesn't come out where the golf carts cross the trail from Pine, your development. That's a little farther up on the road.
Yeah, it's probably about 20 yards up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Yep.
you're right.
And Paula, you make a good point too, because that service road that all the golfer automobile traffic emerges out of the Pines,
Yes.
usually turning right on the
Yes.
service road.
Mhm.
That is narrow, but at this point, and this year in particular, maybe because of the virus, but it seemed like there was, and anecdotally, Grandview has told me this, that the number of bikers at their lodge went up dramatically. And so they've got all these bikers sharing the road with traffic, automobile traffic, and then dumping onto Roy Lake Road
Right.
and then crossing and then staying on the one side and then being asked to cross again. It just seems like a really bad accident waiting to happen at some point in time.
Okay.
Well, thank you for bringing that
Thanks
to our
Mark,
attention.
Bill has a
Yeah,
question.
So just for my clarification, your entire concern lays in that area on the south end of Lower Roy Lake Road to where the trail comes from the Highway 77 and turns north, in that area that's now shown on the map. Is that correct?
Correct. That's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably that first 400 or 500 yards. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
All right. Any other questions from the committee? If not, we'll move on, and you're welcome to stick around. Also in attendance in person is Mark Ronai. Is there anybody else let's see, we only got Ross left, right? Ross, We don't know if Ross is on? Okay.
He is not.
All right, let's move on to under old business. We want to talk about some committee stuff. We already know who the council liaison will be. That will be Ross Kramer. Amber is going to be our minute taker, right, Amber?
Yes.
Okay, great. And do we want to keep our meetings, monthly meetings, the same day, same time? Second Thursday, 5 o'clock?
It's okay this time of
Mark?
year, sure.
Okay. I would like now that Mark is here, it's my understanding you're going to be retiring soon, Mark?
I'm gonna be changing my job, so I'll be no longer operating, I won't be in operations. I'll be doing development, real estate, and some construction stuff.
Okay.
Okay, but you will remain on
I will remain on the payroll.
on this paper.
Yeah, okay.
We don't care about the payroll. We want you on the committee.
I just don't have any, I don't have any employees anymore.
All right, okay. Very good. All right. Have we taken care of all of our business, Amber?
Council liaison minutes, meetings. That looks good for part A.
Okay, let's move to item B. And is Brian Pike with us? Did you say Brian? Is Brian
Yes, he is on.
on Zoom? So Brian, the next item, and I think I sent you the agenda, we're going to, Amber's going to talk a little bit about the grant and anything else that's related to grant. And if you have any comments to make on the grant, you can certainly chime in at this point. So Amber, what else did you want to talk about as far as the grant?
Just a quick update on that one. As you guys know, we've been awarded the $2,434,922. Funds are looking to be hopefully released July. We have not received further direction at this point in terms of, what we need right now. So we're kind of doing some of the back end and the prepping and the strategizing to be able to fulfill our contractual needs and get everything ready to go when funds are available.
So Amber, they have not asked you yet to like finalize your budget and submit it, because the legislative language is now being put together for the legislature to approve.
No, I have not had any instruction as to what we need to, anything that they need from me at this time.
If I can get to that.
Brian?
Yeah, I'll add to that comment, Roger. And
Yes, go ahead.
the reason there's no communication is because we just made a recommendation to the legislature, which just started the regular session, a week or so ago. Until a funding bill is generated, which it will be, that is when the legislature will take action on appropriating the funds for our recommended park and trail projects. And there's about, I think there's 11 of them. And so it's kind of in a wait and see period, because the legislature needs to take action to appropriate those funds to the various parks and trail projects that the commission has made recommendations for. So when people say we've been awarded the funds, I would say you've been recommended to receive those funds through the commission. And then it's the legislature that needs to make the laws. And there's a bunch of ominous legacy bills that would be part of a larger bill package. And generally, the legacy parks and trails projects for greater Minnesota are part of a larger bill typically. Sometimes it incorporates the monies that go to state parks. Sometimes it can be a standalone bill, but generally it's in a larger bill package. And the legislature, takes our recommendations and enrolls them into that bill. So until that bill is reviewed through the committees, natural resource, legacy advisory committees, that certain local legislatures are chair. I know Senator Rude is part of those committees, and others as well that are local to this region. And so until that happens, we have nothing to report to various park and trail entities about their funding until that legislation is passed. Once that occurs, I'll communicate to our executive director to see what kind of communication goes out to the park and trail folks that we've made recommendations for, if there's a follow-up to that. But generally, what happens is once that bill is passed, and it can be late in the legislative session because there's other pressing matters that the legislature addresses. Sometimes it can be late in the legislative session before those bills are even passed. And then the DNR receives that legislative approval to work on contracts through their process. And that's where the communication will be on terms of what the Gull Lake Trail folks would need to do, particularly Amber, to review the contract, making sure that it says what it needs to say in terms of the dollars, what is expected, and things like that. Until that happens, we're probably pretty silent on communicating to the various park and trail entities until that happens.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Any questions to Brian? All right, Brian, thanks very much for your help on this project.
You're welcome.
And your support, Brian. Thank you so much. We're delighted to have the recommendation.
So is there any need to put out a press release in the papers? And maybe, I'm not saying when, but maybe we should wait until the official announcement is. Is that something we should do?
We can definitely look at it as we go along here.
So,
Our
officially, we're not
announcements
going
have
to know
been
until
through-
July, August, right?
Well, like Brian was saying, we can say we were recommended for funding, but like he said, it's not a done deal until the legislature passes the bill. I mean, so,
Well,
yeah, I think,
Wait,
I personally think people in the community should know
Yeah,
that.
if we wait until summer, more people are going to be up here too, especially those that live along the road, those that don't live here full time. So maybe we should think about doing a press release sometime in maybe August, July, August, somewhere in there.
Well,
Okay?
there's not going to be any construction this year.
No, but
Okay.
that's exactly right. And that's one of the things that we can do is identify in the press release on some type of a timeline going forward. All right, any other comments on the grant? If not, we will move to engineering update. Amber, you want to take that on?
Yeah, so we have met, I walked the trail route with Mark Hallen. He was very helpful in pointing out several things to me that he's looking at working on. The environmental impacts, the utilities, all the various components. We cannot spend money, obviously, until we are awarded the funds and they're released to us. So looking at a timeline, very rough timeline, bulk of the construction will be in 2022. There's not going to be much, if any, work done in 2021. We're looking at having one lead engineer and bidding the project as a whole. So that will be the Lakeshore and Nisswa portions as one project, kind of working through a joint powers agreement. Last minute update submission in front of you is WSN's proposed contract that will go through city council review on Tuesday. So if you guys could, take some time this weekend, have a little read,
Ooh, yeah.
and let
10
us
pages.
know your thoughts, feedbacks, questions, any of that. That would be greatly appreciated. In there, they do outline a more specific timeline. But yeah, just so we know that bulk of the construction is not happening this year.
But once the funds are released, we'll be starting to put out contracts, bid contracts.
It's
Bid-
proposed in that agreement there, bidding won't start until December.
December, really?
So
Okay.
that would put
For
no trail work this
yeah,
year,
okay.
if that's, progressed at that
So
timeframe.
we would be working on right-of-way issues with the landowners?
Correct.
Okay, that could start one month, right?
Yep, we're getting clarification on when exactly and how much we can do before we are given those funds.
Well, you can't, you can't do work and then get reimbursed for work that starts before
Right.
July 1st.
Yeah.
Right.
What, the federal grant that we have, what are we going to be what are we using that for?
That's part of what I need to dig in deeper to. That contract has also not been finalized. That has been pushed into an extension period as well, because the project did not start in its original cycle. So that one is in the final stages. Neither one of them do have funds, like the funds have not been released yet.
Okay, well, so,
Can I add one
Go
thing
ahead.
or just ask a question? That's me.
yes,
So I think the idea though, Amber, is, correct me if I'm wrong, if the federal funding can be finalized and potentially released soon, we would use those funds to do the engineering work, pre-design, all of that behind the scenes work to keep things
Yeah.
going. As you read through that engineering contract, you'll see they outline a very specific timeline, which is great. And so it's really going to be dependent on if we can get those federal dollars released soon, because otherwise, yes, we really just have to wait.
yeah.
Even with the right-of-way property acquisition, it just takes time and costs money to go through all those, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves too quickly, even though we really want to get the ball rolling this winter. But so that's what Amber's going to try to iron out those details for us. Hopefully by next month, we'll have a better idea of where that all falls.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you.
Roger,
Okay,
this is
thanks,
Brian.
Jenny. Mark, did you have a
On the-
comment? Nope, okay. All right, we ready to move on?
Roger, this is Brian. I have a comment to make on
Brian,
just on the federal recreation trails grant. I'm not totally familiar with that exactly, but it's my understanding that most of those are for construction only dollars. Now, it may include engineering costs possibly. Maybe construction includes acquisition, but Amber and Roger, you may want to look closely at that to see specifically what dollars that those recreational trails grants are for. My recollection is it's for construction only, but I'm not sure what construction only means or includes.
will do. We will definitely check that application out again and what was awarded or what we proposed to do with that. I think it's around $140,000, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's part of the research that I
Okay.
need to figure out is what exactly the parameters are of that.
Okay,
that
very
grant.
good. Sorry, all right, we'll move on to new business. Under that, we've got the golf court ordinance and trail policy. There's already been some drafts. There's already been a draft out and I believe everybody's had a copy of that. I have some comments to make on especially the trail part. We do have some time here. It's not as though we're under the gun to complete the trail part of that. And I would hope that we turn the trail policy into a trail ordinance. And Jenny, you can correct me on this, but if it's an ordinance, then it's enforceable. I'm not sure a policy is. Is that correct? Do you know? Okay. Also, whatever we come up with, it seems to me like that it also should be the same as both the trail and golf cart should be the same for all jurisdictions: Lake Shore, Fairview Township, and East Gull Lake. So we'd want. I'm assuming that the other jurisdictions would work on this too, or at least approve what we come up with. But that's something you might want to talk to Lakeshore and Fairview Township.
Yes, so that is definitely something that's come up, and something we need to look at to make the trail one cohesive, flowing
Right.
unit. I strongly recommend looking at these as two separate documents. You have the golf cart ordinance, which talks about the registration process, what the golf cart actually is, the mirrors, the taillights, what you need
Right.
for that.
Right.
And then we'd like to initially roll that out, ideally soon. Currently, we don't have a trail to ride the golf cart on. And so while we do need to still look at a trail policy for the Gull Lake Trail and future trails through Nisswa, I recommend looking at them as two separate documents that could potentially roll out in 2 stages.
Sure.
So they're not mutually exclusive to each other. Obviously, the golf cart ordinance is within Nisswa city limits, so that would not necessarily involve approval or dialogues with the other cities. It's good to know what they're doing. We've done a lot of research that way to see different communities and how they handle their golf carts and ATVs and defining everything. And then looking at the trail specifically, future trails in Nisswa, along with the Gull Lake Trail, which has 4 different jurisdictions.
Well, Amber, my understanding of this golf course, that not the trail or ordinance, but the one, this is more on city streets and county roads within the jurisdiction of Nisswa.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make that clarification
Yes.
because they're very different. They're going
Yes,
to be
they are.
very
Very different.
different in terms of use and speed and things like that.
All right, so I would, here's my, some other thoughts I have on the trail golf cart ordinance part, is that I think we should, I don't know to what extent, Amber, you want to, how much time you want to spend on this, but it seems to me like there's some places to go to help us with ordinance, and I'm wondering if we, and maybe Jenny could answer this question. Do you think that going to the League of Minnesota Cities to find out if they have any trail templates, or do they have a source of other trails in Minnesota that they might have the ordinance on, that we could review those? Is that a source that we could utilize for this?
Certainly the league is a great resource for a lot of things. So in drafting this initial golf cart ordinance, I took area city ordinances that are already in place. I likely searched the league website. That's usually one of my go-to places. So I do look at a variety of different options, and then usually look at, okay, this format looks like something we could work with, and then start to make the modifications from there. So I guess my question more to you would be, is there something missing or not referenced that we need to dig into more, as opposed to, or do you just, would it be helpful for you to see some other complete examples?
Yeah, I've been doing that.
Okay.
And there's, I've gone to the southern states. For example, in Georgia, there's a Peachtree City that has 100 miles of blacktop, 10 feet wide, and they allow golf carts on this 100-mile route. And they do have an ordinance. In fact, they put out a brochure also. But there are some things missing, and I guess I need your input.
Sure,
When we're talking about the trail. Should it be an ordinance or policy?
It's a great suggestion. Actually, it hasn't come up as far as being an ordinance or a policy. I think Amber's on, at least I kind of like the direction that she wants to go, is let's focus on the golf carts. What we'd like to do, I don't know if you're going to talk about this or when, I don't want to jump ahead, but create some kind of pilot project for the golf carts this year, see where they're going, what they're doing, where they're parking, and adjust before we have a trail, because then we're going to know what these impacts are. And then it's a great question, and I will definitely look at that as far as a trail policy versus an ordinance, because I think you're on the right track with that. But that was something we thought would be really helpful, is how can we use some, gather some data, see what the activity is in Grandview, and then say, okay, how do we have to change should we change our ordinance? And then how do we apply that to the trail policy for next year? Was kind of the idea.
It's a great idea.
I
Makes sense.
agree. We really can't define a trail ordinance until you have a city ordinance. I mean,
Well, I think-
a broader ordinance under which the trail can.
Well, all I'm saying, there are other trails that have ordinances, and I'm saying we need, and
Yeah.
you've obviously already looked at some of those. I'm not sure how many you've looked at, but they're out there.
Not a ton as far as trail specific. I've
Trail
done more
speci- I'm more-
golf
yeah,
carts.
trail
That
specific is what I'm
Peachtree, Amber shared one of that Peachtree flyer, city flyer thing.
Yep.
That's great. I mean, that was awesome. So I think we could definitely use that as we move forward in the process. Trying to usually what we hear when we draft ordinances is that they're too complex, they're confusing, there's too much going on. So I tried to keep it simple,
Okay.
but certainly want to make sure we're not missing anything.
Right.
So.
Okay. Any other comments on the golf cart trail ordinance at this point? This will be a work in progress.
Yeah, I would just ask that if you guys have anything specific, like if something is missing that you've seen in your other research or travels, that if there's something specific and concrete that we might want to look at adding, modifying, that if you guys could send that in writing, that would be very helpful for Jenny and I consolidating all the feedback.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and I
Very good.
already submitted some comments
Yeah.
on not the trail ordinance, but the other.
And I don't, Bill?
Yeah, I guess the one thought that caught my mind right off the bat, I had underlined it, defining a bicycle as human powered. I know Roger owns an electric bike and they're quite common. You're seeing a lot of them. You're seeing some electric scooters. I think your definitions should be somewhere or another include those.
Yes.
Wherever they belong. So that indeed, if there's a change in the future, if something doesn't get scooped up and,
Right.
dumped, if.
Yeah, there's some language on that that's out there right now on e-bikes and other things. And also I think we should identify what's not permitted on the trail too. But now I've lost my train of thought here. Well, maybe I'll think about it a little
Jenny,
later.
what is your timeline for presenting this? Not the trail, but the golf cart, proposed golf cart ordinance to the council?
I believe, I'm trying to think, I don't believe it would be on next week's agenda. I think I would like to have it on the February council agenda for their information, following a March public hearing adoption moving forward, to then give us time to create that whatever pilot project we want to roll out in the city before the summer.
Sure.
Okay.
My thought came back to me.
Good.
So handling, you have that problem too? Mark, you're not old enough yet.
Again, though.
The tunnel, pocket park, does that fall under the street or the trail? Because that has to be addressed. I haven't seen it anywhere in the street part, the ordinance, as to, are we gonna allow golf carts to go down that? And if not, we need to make provisions to make sure they don't. Even though there might be room for a golf cart, but I think we should seriously take a look at that. But is that something that's gonna, where are we gonna put that tunnel and pocket park in this ordinance?
That's a great question. I mean, it's not a city street, so there would not be golf carts allowed there. We'd have to work through those specifics, I think, as part of the construction of the trail, signage and things that we
Yeah,
need to implement to give people those visuals to understand where they're going and, oops, I have to stop here and turn around or whatever. But those are details too. We should look at and make sure we're factoring in.
Okay, so.
Yes. So send
So
those
if you're-
kinds of
if you're-
questions to us.
So the street part is going to be, you're going to move on that. So are we going to see the tunnel and the pocket park or the access down in the street portion or not? Are you going to leave it?
I'm not following
She
your
just said
question.
That would-
That's not, they're not city streets, so they're not gonna be included in this.
That would be more of the trail.
You think that okay, that's
Yes.
fine. Now, I
Yep.
don't- you know,
Oh, okay, I see where you're
We'll
going with that.
address
Yeah,
it
the street,
in the trail.
correct.
part,
Hazelwood
okay?
ends, I mean,
That's very
basically
good.
where the
Yep.
blacktop ends at this
Okay,
point.
that makes sense.
So then
Yeah.
we'd probably have to
Yeah.
have a sign just to make
Yep,
sure people
absolutely.
understand.
Well, not only a sign, but there should be we talked about that.
Yeah.
A permanent post put up in the middle of that so they can't take a golf cart down.
Mm-hmm.
And also at the other end of the tunnel to make sure they can't get a golf cart through there. So those are things that we could do. We can put that under our trails part. then,
Yep, those
right?
ones we have time to work through.
Okay,
Plenty of time, yep.
very good. Anything else on item A? If not, we'll go to 7B. This is the property acquisition draft letter that we all got.
Did we get a copy of it?
I got
in
it.
your
Forgot
packet.
to read the packet, didn't I?
Really?
Well, I believe it was in the packet.
Pardon?
I believe it was in your packet. If not,
Yeah,
it's up on the
it was-
screen here.
It's on a, okay, let me,
The last pages in the agenda, there's the last pages in.
As you guys look for it, I'll start discussing what
okay,
this
this is
is.
it right here.
Okay, can I look at it?
Yeah,
Sorry,
No problem.
Okay, so, yeah, she's got it up. I do have a question. Let me just make sure I do that. Okay, so here's something. I think the letter looks really good. But Bill and I talked about, in addition to the one-page letter, is to put a map of Lower Roy Lake Road showing the easement boundaries. Does that make sense? So that when they get that letter, even though that we're going to talk to these property owners individually, they can physically see that, what impacts their property. Does that make sense? Am I making myself understood?
yeah, I understand you. I'll have to look into that and see what I can find and how easy it is to read on what I find.
I'd also suggest that, the map should show a dimension of the taking or the property acquisition. And also show a cross-section, a typical cross-section showing the trail being 2 feet off the edge of the roadway, and then 10 feet, and then 2 feet of green space on the other side of it, so that they don't get, someone that's looking at this doesn't get the impression, gee, this is gonna come way into my property. In
Sure.
reality, it's almost like on the shoulder.
Sure. Yeah, so this letter here that I drafted is kind of just the initial, hello, we are being recommended for this trail to go go through, and that they've been identified as a landowner. And then follow-up communication will come with, as we get a more precise mapping of where the trail will be placed. I think that would be a really good time to show all that stuff, where exactly it is on their property or where it is in the right of way. So this one's the preliminary letter to just introduce them, to say that we have been recommended for the funding. It's in the works to come, and they'll get more exact information.
When do you propose to send this letter out?
Well, hopefully soon.
Well, let's back up just quick. Does Mark have an assistant engineer that's going to be helping us? You know, when we first started, Mark had, I think his name was Justin, that made a lot of the meetings. Do you know if Mark has someone slotted to help him with this project?
Not that I'm aware of. We're planning to have one lead engineer. So Lakeshore they're with WSN2. They have their own engineer. One of them will likely be the primary, and the other one will also be knowledgeable. So they'll kind of help each other, versus another person is kind of my understanding of where they're at in their departments.
Jenny?
The only comment I wanted to make on that was, I don't want to get into a situation where we present something and then engineering comes back with some kind of modification. And now we've given an expectation to the property owner that, well, wait a minute, why do you need 2 more feet or this or that? So that would be my only suggestion.
sure.
And then as far as WIDSET goes, WSN, I mean, they have teams of people doing kind of the different stages of it as well. And yes, they will work out who will be the primary. There will always be redundancy there, so that if someone's on vacation or whatnot, but.
Does the contract talk about them attending our meetings, monthly meetings?
Their contract does outline a couple of specific times when they would attend to present their information. They're always available if we need them, but we don't want to spend money just to have them sit here for 2 hours if we really don't have a purpose. So we're trying to be thoughtful in that way.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I think you're probably right. We'll forget the map. Mark has a question.
That's what I was wondering. Or,
Well, you're not going to get reimbursed for any time that anybody puts in talking to these landowners until you get the legislative approval.
I was gonna say, well, come show me what you're talking about. So I think that might be, if you want to do that. The second thing is, do we want to give them the opportunity in this letter once again to delegate the right of way?
And to tell them, I think more specifically in this letter, you just say, we're going to have to get some property rights from you, but you don't tell them how much, you know? I mean, they'll have questions about that. So you should tell them more specifically what kind of, distance you're talking about.
That's the chicken and the egg that we're talking about.
Yeah,
You know, if you approach the subject, they're gonna want more information.
right.
Detail, then they'll send you if the details change. So we have to, I think our communication will have to be a little vague, be a little more specific than this, but a little vague, and with some caveats in there.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, if we know if they donate the right of way or easement or the right of way, would they be eligible for a tax deduction or something like that?
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah, they
Good
would.
point, Mark. So, and you think and that should go in here, this letter?
I think right now, and this is just a draft, that's why we have.
Right.
But it's, we want to make sure, I like that this says there's a lot in this for all of us. And you say a number of your neighbors or a number of people or large amounts of this right away have been donated. We would love to talk if you're interested in donating the right, because everything we get donated is money that I presume we can spend on something else, because, budget's never enough. So that's a thought. And make this as community project oriented, as welcoming, as something in this where you anticipate this will actually increase the number of property values, or we can say this will increase the access for, and a lot of that's in there. I want to make sure that we get this as much.
Yeah, that's good points, good points.
So, and then, back to this point about, the legislature, you're going to contract with a company to talk with these landowners?
That's
One avenue that
'Cause you
we've,
can't pay them unless you're using the federal grant money. You are not going to be able to pay them for any work that they do prior to July 1.
Right.
yeah, this is, and I like your point, Mark, of like maybe as an introductory letter, changing the language of this, be like, hey, we've been recommended that, if all things go through, and just kind of starting a friendly dialogue before we really get into the nuts and bolts of.
Yeah, well, I think you need, because if you send them this letter and then they're anticipating somebody coming to talk to them and it's,
Yeah,
6 months
right.
from now.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe giving them the impression that, we'll be in touch come spring or something
Yeah,
more, so they
exactly.
don't jump the gun and,
Yeah.
Amber's phone's ringing off the hook. And I'm pretty sure, but just based on my conversations with Matthew, that he has been in contact with all of these property owners. So there's
Yeah.
going to be no surprise.
yes.
So they're probably expecting this to come at some point, but I think these are great suggestions.
Bill?
Okay, I've got a little concern on the other side of the point that Mark raised, that someone might want to donate. Let's say we've spent a lot of time, effort, we've gotten the grant, supposedly it's all coming through. I think the city needs to be in a position where as a last possible resort, that they would go back to an eminent domain to take a taking. Because otherwise, if we eliminate that possibility and announce that up front, say, okay, there should be no condemnation of property, one person sitting along Lower Roy Lake Road or wherever where we need land could stop the project. And I don't think the city can get into that position. I think you have to have that ultimate right that you have as a city to take the property if you need
Yep.
to.
I would never argue that we should give that right out in that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Good point, Bill.
Good point, yes.
okay. Jenny, do you have another point to make?
No, I agree.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Amber, you pick up the letter there in the second paragraph?
Second.
Second paragraph, where it ends with, the 21 miles of beautiful trail will connect you to the downtown Nisswa Park, Paul Bunyan Trail, and I want to add this, and south to East Gull Lake. We've talked about the north part, this trail is going to go south too. So we should add south to East Gull Lake.
I think another thing that came out of our park board interviews this afternoon is somebody brought up connections to the Pillsbury State Forest and some other areas, other underutilized and unknown areas that are not known as well. So I think that could even be a positive to put in there.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, Amber, it looks like you've got some changes here to work on.
Sure thing.
All right.
Thank you.
Good comments, guys. Good work. Okay, are we done with the letter revision or letter? Okay, we'll move to C. Hazelwood, Roy Lake Road intersection, troubleshooting trail location.
All right.
Amber?
Yes. So this is a map. You got Lower Roy Lake coming in on the left, and then Hazelwood Drive. These are not the only options, but just two ideas here. One being the red line would be more of a right angle trail crossing. You have the Copper Creek driveway there at about 5 o'clock. Another option would be kind of, again, this is not to scale or exact by any means, the blue line where it would cross the road and bisect the corner there and then come back. What the dotted yellow line is, potentially with the red crossing, if it's a right angle, you're gonna have people potentially just cutting kitty corner. So just wanted to put some of that out there for you guys to start the initial thinking dialogue to help the engineers. There is a utility box along the blue line there, but I believe there is enough space to go to not have to really alter the trail path. So making sure that obviously sight lines are good, that we're not putting that crossing too close to the corners and the intersections there, but looking for some feedback, pros and cons, ideas.
Are you,
Not from, not me. I don't know if Matthew or
Matt's had
Mark
Matt's probably
or,
conversations with him. Matt did.
What I was thinking is, I know Joe as well. You know, this is gonna be, he's a landscaper, so what he does, he could probably help us design, because the problem he has is that driveway that he has is too wide as an entrance street.
Mhm.
And, it doesn't look particularly good, I know it's his back door and everything, but he also has done that nice pizza oven and all that stuff outside. The first thing I would do is, I think we should talk to Joe and say, Joe, we're gonna be going right here, why don't you help us with a little design work here, and just a little grab his design work, and say, how would you like it to come across your, put you in the best light, puts us in the best light, he's got equipment, he's got everything in the world, and he's got a 3D rendering and all that stuff. I'd be happy to talk to, you and I can talk to Joe about it.
Okay,
If you want to, and then.
That's a good idea.
good idea.
He's a creative guy, and he's a community guy.
Sure.
So I think we should. give it a
Okay.
try and see if we can-
Great. So Mark and Amber will talk to Joe. Good
Does anyone
deal.
else have,
Question. Are you saying that the blue line is actually proposed as a crossing?
just as we were walking through there,
Because
those were,
that'll never work, that blue line. It's too much traffic coming up to the stoplight there and people turning. There's tons of traffic coming up Hazelwood and people turning right, people going through, people coming up to the stop sign. It would be a mess to have them crossing the road twice there.
do you think crossing, because I'm guessing human nature, depending, like, don't know how exactly the trail would look, but if they had an opportunity to cut kitty corner, they're probably gonna take it.
Yeah.
Well, they will unless you have
Sure.
a defined area
Well, it's the
outlined.
mark, they're obviously you're going to put markings on the blacktop there for sure to identify what's up.
I think you may well have to go to a three-way stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
think
I
this is-
agree.
It's gonna be a traffic
Yeah.
I think
nightmare.
This is in the cards right now. and
Yeah.
you'll
It already
probably talk
is.
to the
It
city
is.
staff about
It's pretty busy in the
this is the
summertime.
likely-
Well, I live right there, in the road that's right there, and the traffic, the bike traffic this summer was good for business, but there was a lot of bike traffic, and those people would be on all sides of the roads, and then they would come up to that intersection, and they would be totally everywhere. So, yeah, it has to be very well defined, and a three-way stop is probably gonna be necessary.
Okay. Very good. All right. So we got a plan of action to handle that. Anything else on the junction intersection? All right. We'll move on to item 8, special concerns. Bill, you had some thoughts?
I've got a couple here. I expressed the one earlier about the city not getting into a position about on eminent domain, that they would refuse to do that. In the previous couple of years, I know I was involved in a couple of the meetings. I think Roger was, I'm not sure who else. Matthew and, for example, myself would meet with a property owner. We talked to several property owners along Hazelwood, some along Lower Roy, a couple of tight spots. And we kind of threw out suggestions that got people nodding their heads saying, yeah, I think that could work. I'm hoping that Matthew kept good notes on that and that we can forward those to the engineer. So we aren't
Yes.
reinventing the wheel and suddenly irritating one of these property owners oh gee, you told me earlier that, you wouldn't have to move this wall, that type of thing. And I'm assuming he kept good notes. I could probably pick a little bit out of my mind, which is slipping fast, but,
We talked, I was involved with all of the, and you were some, but all the people that have horses, I was there, and we talked about double fences to all of them and some other things. But I'm sure, Amber, if you go back through the minutes, they're in there. But that, Bill is correct. We need to communicate those promises to the engineers to let them know, right? Jenny, you think that's important, right?
I'm occasionally there's some spots there where, people have built right out, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we don't even need any opposition, we just need to use the right of way. And the road's gonna be 12 feet, almost like over. So there's gonna be a few hots.
Yeah.
oh yeah. And that, again, that goes back to the first concern that I had. The last concern, at least for tonight, asphalt mix design. How to get into this quickly. The Paul Bunyan Trail, if you've ridden a lot of it, has all sorts of different mix designs out there. A lot of places, the earlier places are cracked pretty badly. You get cracks in the pavement, the ants get in, they bring soil up to the surface, it washes off, pretty soon it dips. Pavement, the maintenance money for these trails, once you've built them, is really hard to come by. So if you look at different parts of the Paul Bunyan, there's a section from Brainerd down to Crow Wing State Park that is really, it's more recent. It's really nice. It's got very few shrinkage cracks in it. There's, I'd say, less than 1 in 50 feet, probably with closer to 1 in 200 or 300 feet after 6 or 7 years. The surface is holding together well. And, if I compare that to like, if you cross on Colonel Thorpe, if you go across going west from 371, the pavement's 5, 6 years old and it's already full of potholes. And, our goal here, I think, should be to get a pavement that lasts 25, 30 years, if we can get that much out of it, that is comfortable to ride on a bike so it isn't rough. And this section down there seems to have that. The DNR that was, paved under a Paul Bunyan Trail DNR contract, and I'm sure they came up with a mixed design. And I think that's we should send our engineer to look at that, talk to those folks, find out what they use for a mixed design and incorporate that in. A fine aggregate is far better than a coarse aggregate because as the surface starts to deteriorate from oxidation, which it will, coarse aggregate is rough to ride on. The fine aggregate is a lot smoother. And, we aren't designing a 10-ton road here. We're looking at relatively light loads with a pickup running down it maybe once in a while or a plow. But primarily, we're looking at longevity of the pavement.
So is that something that we would include the spec, design spec, research in the engineering contract?
Yeah, that's a good point. Amber, have you had a chance to read this? Has anybody?
I've
Jenny,
skimmed
you
it
probably read it a
briefly.
couple of times.
I did read it twice today, actually, yes. So, as part of the grant submission, the engineers had to provide an estimated cost. And so they would have taken some assumed mixture and what that cost is to then determine, that piece of the construction for the grant. So there has been probably some assumption made by our engineers on what that is. But certainly as we get to final design, that's going to be a question. We want to make sure we're all on the right page and making the right selection and keeping cost in mind.
I would suspect probably, they grabbed a MnDOT spec and they looked at recent prices on it, and that's what they included in the design, per
Yeah.
ton or however they approached it. And we probably aren't talking of, a cost difference that's significant. The percent of oil, the size of the aggregate, that type of thing, can make a world of difference in this pavement design.
Yeah.
So one thing that leads me to ask the question is each city responsible for the maintenance of their portion after the trails up?
Yeah.
Yes. We have actually started to budget for future trail maintenance.
Yep.
in this year's budget, a very small amount, but I had to get something in there to
Gotta
start
start
it.
somewhere.
So we'll start to build upon that just because the years fly by, like, like you say, it's all of a sudden 5 years later and we need to do some work and we need to have some money for it. But yes, each city will be responsible for that.
Yeah.
But no, Amber will make a note and we'll make sure to,
I guess the other thing, Bill talked about the asphalt mix, but I think it's the substrate underneath that asphalt, especially on the Grandview, right, where there's a lot of trees around, there's a lot of roots going all over the place, to make sure that there is the proper spray or chemical to stunt the roots or whatever, because we've all seen places where the roots will come right up into the blacktop within 3 or 4 years. So that's another design, trail design that I think we'd like to know what's happening with
They could treat
the
that,
areas.
they could treat that base and the class 5 for that matter with chemical, just run a truck down, spray it, and it'd be locked in under the pavement, and then pave it shortly thereafter, and it should be locked in there pretty good. I've had a little bit of success just like taking Roundup or whatever, and just like spraying on a crack. It seems
Yeah.
to diminish it. So that apparently is one chemical that would hold those roots back.
Well, that's just something that I think, we kind of, us trail advocates would like to make sure that's
No
done.
comment.
Okay?
We're not Roundup fans.
We're not-
The nature advocates.
Mark, I'm sure, has got an answer. No comment. All right, very good. Any other special concerns? I think we're nearing the end here. So I think we've done a good job tonight, guys. We've come up with a lot of creative ideas and thoughts that are going to help us out in the next step here. So I don't have any other comments. Does anybody else?
Thank you, Roger.
Consider the meeting adjourned.
Exciting to be able to.
And thanks, Jenny,
start to
for you
move
showing
forward.
up to help us out.
Thank you, Jenny.
Mark, don't leave yet. I got something I need to talk to you about.
So meeting's adjourned.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I
You,
second.
Mark, Bill, thank you.
Good for that.
Okay, we've just gone from one meeting to the next.